G'day people, I'm the Wood Toy Bloke, or Bruce Bailey as I'm usually known by. This is a wood-fired train that I made probably over 2 years ago now, but I never got around to actually making up some rails or track for it to sit on and display, and I thought probably time to do it. I found a bit of 12mm pine which I figured was just wide enough to squeeze two rails out of it. Ideally you'd actually use something a bit wider so you've got something to hang on to while you're doing the fine detailing here. But that's what I had, and as always I try to work with what I've got on the shelf or hanging around. So what you can see me doing here is cutting a channel just a couple of mil in from each end around all 4 edges. And from there I just tap it over a couple of mil just to make that channel a bit wider. In fact, this will make it about 5mm wide all around. And that's my initial profile for the rail. And now I very carefully just split that down the middle so I get my 2 rails out of that one piece. Now you can see here that the skinny bit at the top will be the top of the rail, and it needs to be, if you like, reduced in width to make it look proportional. So on this side I've simply started to run it through the saw so that it takes just that bit off there, and then I'll need to do it for the other side. Now, a couple of things I've done off camera here, and one is that I actually cut the depth of these channels a bit deeper just to improve the shape and the profile. I've put some, I've sanded these bits here. I'll come back and do a little bit more of that. But I need to put a bit of a bevel on here. I mean, all railway line has a bevel there, a slope down to this edge here. And how to do that's the interesting thing, because I mean, obviously I could have set my table saw. In fact, I did on a prototype. I set my table saw at an angle and ran this through on that. However, my table saw is a contractor saw, so it really didn't work out too well. It just hasn't got the accuracy. So what I also thought I might do is just try running a block plane along this edge here. But because the plane has a width on it between the outer edge and the blade, you really can't get in there very well. I actually angled this blade a bit too to try and create that a bit easier. So what I finally decided is that to get that bevel, I'll simply use a bit of coarse sandpaper and run it down by hand. I've tried a bit and it runs down pretty well. Because I'm working with soft pine, this actually didn't take too long at all. Each of these pieces is, well, about 90 centimetres long. So I did that on all sides. Now onto the base of the track. This is just a rectangular piece of jarrah, some rectangular cut sleepers and some blue metal. Well, blue metal is dolomite, which over here is crushed up and used on our roads. So just glue on the sleepers evenly spaced across the base, and from there just glued on. I actually just used Type-On too, just to glue on the bit of road metal. Now I marked with a pencil the positioning of the rail here, but it didn't show up too well on the dark jarrah, so I just used some painter's tape to highlight that for me to go back and start gluing. Using super glue, I wanted it to dry quite quickly so that I could just move on, and does the job pretty well. A little bit of overhang of the rail I'll cut off afterwards, as you'll see, but the ends of it were a little bit daggier after all the sanding and work. So one on each side, and I thought, well, I better mark off where they've got to be cut, and then like a dill, I forgot that I didn't need to do this. All I had to do was just turn it over and run it flush down the other side. quick clean up of the little furry bits after the saw cut, and then moved on to putting some finish on. I just use my favourite here, which is the water-based poly, and I find that using an artist brush here, a fine brush, it tends to get it right down in between all the jagged bits of stone and sleepers and so on. Well, there we have it. The train is on the rail and it fits pretty well. I allowed a bit of extra width just between the rails just to give a bit of clearance in case I needed some fiddle room. As it turned out, I didn't. And I've allowed extra on either end, and maybe one day I'll make a carriage to go out here, and I'll simply make a duplicate to add on to it. One more thing I think I should mention though. I've talked before about this between a toy and a model. Now, toys can be models, but models can't be toys. If you have a look at this, it's got way too many delicate parts on it. You just could not let that be handled by a young child of any sort. So this was my one only model that I've made. Otherwise, I make toys.